Bienvenue à tous. Welcome to Live from Paris, World News and Analysis from France 24. I'm Mark Owen. These are the main world news headlines. At least 27 are dead in a suicide bomb attack against Iran's elite Revolutionary Guard. Tehran is vowing revenge against what it calls Sunni terrorists. A Middle East peace conference brings the Arab Gulf states and Israel to the same table. It's happening in Poland, but few EU states were given enough notice to attend, and Iran, not invited, has condemned it all as a circus. Crisis looms in Spain as the budget's rejected, the Catalan members of parliament turning their back on the government, pushing Spain to perhaps a third election in 5 years. Thank you very much for being with us. Iran is vowing revenge this Wednesday for what it calls a terror attack on its soldiers. 27 members of Iran's Revolutionary Guard were killed when their bus was hit by a suicide bomb attack. It happened in the southeast of the country on a road near to the border with Pakistan. The Sunni militant group Jaish al-Adl has claimed the atrocity. Our correspondent Reza Saya has this from Tehran.
Jaish al-Adl is a Sunni separatist movement that's been operating in southeastern Iran for roughly 17 or 18 years. Prior to 2011, 2012, they went by the name Jandollah. They've carried out a number of attacks targeting Iran's armed forces in southeastern Iran. But this one, tonight's attack, had devastating results. If my recollection is correct, this attack today could be the deadliest terrorist attack on Iranian soil, at least for the past decade, maybe longer. You'll recall in September, there was another terrorist attack in southwestern Iran that killed 24 people. State media says this was a suicide car bombing that targeted a bus carrying members of Iran's Revolutionary Guard, the elite branch of Iran's armed forces. State media reporting that the bus was on the move on a highway when the suicide car bomber pulled alongside of it and detonated its explosives, again, killing 41 people on board. Pictures of the aftermath show a heap of steel and metal. That was all that was left of the bus. This incident taking place in Sistan, Baluchistan in southwestern Iran. This is a scarcely populated area. It's mostly deserts there. The population, mostly Baluch, which are predominantly Sunni Muslims. And as we mentioned before, there's been a long-running separatist movement there, oftentimes led by Jaish al-Adl, that claimed responsibility for this deadly attack tonight.
Reza Saya, our correspondent there in Tehran. Next, Arab states and Israel around the same table, a Middle East peace conference which took place in Poland, co-hosted by the United States, but few are holding out hope of any constructive results. Iran has dismissed the whole event as a circus, and few EU states were given sufficient time to attend. Here at France 24, Anka Ula with this.
An international conference co-hosted by the United States and slammed by Iran as a circus.
On the Warsaw Conference, I believe it's dead on arrival or dead before arrival. I don't think it would do anything. It's another attempt by the United States to pursue an obsession with Iran that is not well-founded.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Vice President Mike Pence are both attending the conference in Warsaw. Initially, the Trump administration said the two-day meeting would focus on Iran, but later broadened the scope to touch on other conflicts, including Syria and Yemen. But much of the schedule has been vague, amid deep divisions over policy towards the region. A discomfort reflected in the guest list. France and Germany chose not to send cabinet-level officials. Russia and China aren't attending, nor is the European Union's foreign policy chief. Middle Eastern attendees include Israel, Saudi Arabia, and its Gulf allies. For Washington's ally, Israel, it's a chance to tout improved relations with Arab neighbors by uniting against a common enemy.
I have to tell you that the courageous decision of Sultan Qaboos to invite me to Oman is changing the world. It's pointing the way for many others to do what you said, not to be stuck in the past, but to seize the future.
One of the biggest points of contention is the Iran nuclear deal. Besides Israel, the U.S. and Iran's regional rivals, nearly all countries still back the denuclearization accord.
Uncle Ula with that report. Well, Manuel Lafont Rapanui is from the European Council on Foreign Relations. He says the best thing the United States could have done to advance the cause of peace was to have remained within the framework of the Iran nuclear deal.
It's right to raise this concern. It's not right to conclude from this concern that it should withdraw. It was right to withdraw from the nuclear deal. The nuclear deal was there to deal with nuclear activities, to prevent Iran to go further in its nuclear program and to develop a nuclear bomb. There are other issues, and everybody agrees there are other issues, including the French, the Germans, the British, who have been to Washington and have tried to change Trump's mind before he actually publicized the decision to withdraw. But these issues, they can be dealt differently, and they could even probably be dealt better if the Iran deal was still there and if the Trump's administration policy didn't look so much as a crusade against the Iranian regime.
Next, Spain could be on the slide to a third election in 5 years. The crisis caused by the rejection of the budget is raising questions in the Madrid Parliament. The Cortes Generales, Catalan members withdrew their support, throwing the budget into chaos, a move that comes as 12 Catalan separatists are on trial for sedition. It means the Socialist Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez may have little choice but to go to the polls.
A budget rejected and a rethink required.
The amendments are approved and the 2019 budget proposal is rejected.
Pedro Sánchez's government has accused Conservatives and Catalan separatists of blocking a budget that included social spending measures as well as an increased investment in Catalonia. With little parliamentary support, Sánchez could call early elections instead of presenting a revised budget. This could mean a right-wing majority in Parliament. Conservatives accuse the socialist government of treason for negotiating with Catalonia's separatist executive, as Madrid has been trying to ease tensions with the region. The Catalan foreign minister was asked on France 24 if separatists made the right move in rejecting the budget, given that new elections could usher in a government that's less willing to negotiate.
Perhaps there could be a vote, we don't know. He can just renew the budget from last year. That's a possible move. In fact, Mr. Sánchez suggested that a couple of months ago.
Separatist leaders are on trial for their role in the 2017 attempt to make Catalonia an independent republic. And on Friday, negotiations between Madrid and the Catalan government broke down.
Let's get more on this story and bring in Paul Kennedy, lecturer in Spanish Studies at the University of Bath. Paul, thanks very much for joining us. Can you tell us more about the divisions in Spain that this whole situation is now highlighting?
It was always a bit of an unstable situation when this government was formed last year. It was last May, June. I was surprised. This is the first time that the constitutional arrangements for a vote of confidence to lead to a change of government have ever happened. It's really a first. And it led to the formation of a fairly unstable government in that the socialists were dependent on the likes of Podemos and these Catalan nationalists in order to remain in office. The other sort of striking thing is that the Socialist Party, led by Pedro Sánchez, has just 84 of the 350 seats in the lower house, in the Congreso. So this isn't really surprising. I mean, I did predict it would last about a year, and dare I say, I think I was right.
If you've got any other tips, let me know. Now then, if Sánchez goes to the country, Paul, there's no guarantee he's going to win, is there?
No, there's not. And what is a little bit worrying, particularly given Spain's history, but dare I say it seems to reflect so many countries these days, is that there's a real polarization now. Where the right wing in Spain is now formed on the basis of three parties now, really. The Partido Popular, the Popular Party, who were, of course, in office under Rajoy until last year. The Ciudadanos, who are kind of a more modern, technocratic type party. But there's also another party which worries the likes of me, called Vox, who have made strides, particularly in Andalusia, over recent weeks and months. So we have those three, and they had sort of a joint rally over the weekend, which I actually thought looked quite threatening, really. The idea of gathering together to protest against the socialist government because they saw Spain's unity being threatened. And on the other hand, you have the socialists together with Podemos, and to an extent support from the Catalan nationalists. But no surprise that the Catalan nationalists have their own agenda as well. And pushing that agenda is difficult for a party like the Socialists, who, while sympathetic, are by no means in favour of Catalan independence. So it's all come to a head now.
Is there any coincidence in the
Friday?
Sorry, Paul. Is there any coincidence that there's a trial going on right now of 12 Catalan separatists, and the Catalans withdrew their support for this budget?
No, I don't think. No, I don't think it is a coincidence at all. Of course, this is a very tense moment in Spain because the trial has is kicking off this week, and it's been obviously a very difficult period both for the Catalan nationalists and the separatists and for the government, because we've reached really a point of no return, really, that the Catalans can maybe be in favour of the sort of budget measures that were being negotiated and debated this week. But what they're really concerned about, of course, is the future of Catalan nationalism, and that's where it's been like squaring a circle really between the government and its supporters in Catalonia.
Paul, thank you very much indeed for joining us. We will speak again because this story far from over. Paul Kennedy, lecturer in Spanish Studies at the University of Bath. Thank you, sir, very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Next, President Donald Trump says Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's unwillingness to accept humanitarian aid shows what happens when the wrong government holds power. Trump commented during a White House meeting this Wednesday with the Colombian President Iván Duque, whose country borders Venezuela, accused Maduro of committing a crime against humanity.
Really, we're trying to get food to people that are starving. You have people starving in Venezuela. And it just shows what can happen with the wrong government. You have the wrong government, bad things happen. But you have many, many people that are in really trouble for just hunger. And so we are delivering, and we're sending tremendous amounts of food.
I think we have to give a very strong message to the dictatorship. Obstructing the access of humanitarian aid is a crime against humanity. And we have to ensure that the humanitarian aid gets to the Venezuelan people, and Colombia is highly committed to receive humanitarian aid from the U.S. and other countries so that it can access Venezuela and help the Venezuelan people.
Iván Duque, President of Colombia, sitting next to Donald Trump, President of the United States. Well, the people in Venezuela are facing, as we were just hearing, horrific conditions brought on by the economic hardship blamed on the mismanagement of the Maduro regime. Inflation predicted to hit 10 million% this year, which means if there's food in the shops, no one will have enough money to actually buy it. The shortages, though, of food and medicines has left many people, especially children, in desperate health. Trying to get educated in this context is tough. Schools across the border in Colombia have seen a sudden increase in demand for places. And in one school in Cúcuta in Colombia, the majority of students are Venezuelan, walking from Venezuela every day to get there.
Crossing the border from Venezuela to Colombia, these young Venezuelans make this journey every day to go to school. Maike Palacio lives in San Antonio del Táchira in Venezuela. It takes her 2 hours to bring her daughter and goddaughter to a school in the border town of Cúcuta. She says she has no option as the schools where she lives are closed.
They haven't had any lessons in January. The teachers are on strike because they haven't been paid. So basically they were having to teach for free, and so they resigned.
There are more than 1,000 Venezuelan children who are studying in Cúcuta but live on the other side of the border, and demand for places is high.
Since October, we've received more than 9,000 requests for only 600 new places.
The children's uniform helps them get priority when crossing the bridge into Colombia and to get past border guards.
The uniform means that they can skip the queue and go through the middle, through the exit for the elderly people.
So for now, despite the long school run, these Venezuelan children can keep their studies going.
And we continue to keep our eye on all developments as they come out from Venezuela. Next, Maria Ressa, a leading journalist in the Philippines, is under arrest in Manila. She's facing charges of cyber libel. It's over a 2012 article updated in 2014 that linked a businessman to murder and trafficking of humans and drugs. It was based on information contained in an intelligence report from an unspecified agency. The charges brought against Ms. Reza are under a law that was enacted 4 months after her article was published. Maria Ressa is the brains behind the website Rappler. The site has been harassed and intimidated, it says, by the government of President Rodrigo Duterte, and its journalists are barred from covering any of Duterte's events across the country.